One name, one testimony, and a courtroom that fell completely silent. When Pam Bondi took the stand, no one expected her to bring receipts, let alone name names. But what she revealed about Diddy's shadow network wasn't just shocking, it was career-ending. What secrets did she unleash, and why was everyone too afraid to interrupt? The news broke quietly at first, just a single notification tucked beneath the usual daily noise. A former state official subpoenaed in a federal investigation? Nothing unusual. But by the end of the day, the headlines had mutated. Pam Bondi called to testify in celebrity federal probe. What followed was a storm. Pam Bondi had long retreated from the political spotlight since her tenure as Florida's Attorney General. She'd made occasional media appearances, sat on a few panels, and consulted on conservative legal initiatives, but nothing that would warrant a re-entry into a federal courtroom. So why now? Why this case? And, more urgently, why was her testimony triggering internal panic within Diddy's legal team? On June 3, 9:37 a.m., Bondi's legal counsel was served with a federal subpoena requesting her appearance in front of a closed grand jury in the Southern District of New York. The language was unusually specific, referencing direct knowledge of high-level communications and undisclosed legal settlements from the year 2015 concerning Sean Combs and associated entities. No media outlet had wind of it yet, but that didn't last long. By the afternoon, a leaked internal email from an unnamed assistant U.S. attorney began circulating among freelance reporters. The phrase critical relevance to sealed financial disclosures set off a digital wildfire. Within hours, Twitter OX threads, Reddit conspiracies, and Telegram channels were flooded with claims. Bondi had been present at a meeting between Diddy's legal team and a now-defunct investment fund accused of laundering money through entertainment front companies. The immediate fallout was fierce. Bondi's legal team scrambled to regain control of the narrative, filing an emergency motion to restrict press access and requesting anonymity for her participation. The motion claimed her involvement placed her under extreme threat, both politically and personally, and argued that public exposure could endanger the lives of cooperating witnesses. But this only made the situation more combustible. If there wasn't something monumental beneath the surface, why would a former state official need federal protection? News stations weren't far behind. Within 24 hours, her face, eerily stoic from her time as a high-profile prosecutor, was back in rotation across all major outlets. Chirons screamed speculation. Why is Pam Bondi being called to testify against Diddy? And former AG linked to celebrity blackmail ring? Diddy's camp moved just as swiftly. According to an internal memo leaked from a legal assistant within the entertainment mogul's legal firm, efforts were underway to have Bondi's name officially struck from the witness list. The memo cited unverified motivations and politically tinged alliances that could undermine her credibility. But the move came too late. By June 5, a senior investigative reporter from The Atlantic published an excerpt from an email chain between Bondi and a former federal prosecutor dated August 2015. One line stood out like a knife. "You know I can't sign that settlement. Not while the tapes exist." The leak was damning, not just because it implicated Bondi in a 2015 negotiation involving confidential material, but because no one had publicly discussed any tapes yet. Theories exploded. Was this about the alleged footage from the Miami estate? Had Bondi seen it? Had she blocked a hush settlement because of it? If so, why wasn't it uncovered earlier during the previous rounds of litigation surrounding Diddy and his affiliates? Reporters began digging. Court records were scrubbed for mentions of a 2015 civil case, particularly any that settled unusually fast. A match emerged, a civil suit filed by a former entertainment assistant claiming wrongful dismissal, sexual coercion, and audiovisual surveillance at an estate in southern Florida. It settled in under 72 hours, with all documents sealed. Now, in hindsight, that settlement appeared radioactive. Inside legal circles, whispers grew louder. Bondi's refusal to sign off on the agreement had allegedly caused a rift between her and the governor's office at the time. And while she hadn't made any public mention of it, those close to her say that 2015 was when she began slowly backing away from political limelight. Back in the present day, the U.S. Marshal's Office confirmed on June 6 that Bondi had been placed under limited protective custody as a cooperating witness in an ongoing federal investigation. Her residence was temporarily vacated. Her phone, disabled. Her team, silent. But silence only fuels suspicion. By June 7, the online sleuths had connected another dot. A known associate of Diddy's had reportedly filed a defamation suit against a tabloid editor in 2016. The editor had tried to publish an exposé that referenced a female legal official blocking a deal because she saw too much.
That story was buried before it could reach print.
And now, the resurfaced quote from Bondi's 2015 email seemed to resurrect that suppressed truth.
The implications were enormous. Bondi wasn't just a side player.
She might be a linchpin, someone who had not only refused to go along with a questionable settlement but had kept records and communications that could reframe the entire investigation. At the federal courthouse, press badges were revoked.
Journalists were barred.
A single notice was posted on the Eastern Wing's bulletin board. In-camera testimony to resume.
No admittance. Do not approach witness. Security was doubled. The press circled like vultures.
Pam Bondi, once the voice of Florida's legal system, was about to become something far more explosive, the woman whose testimony might detonate a cultural empire. And that detonation would begin the moment she stepped through the courtroom door. It was just after 9 a.m. when the courtroom doors opened, but the air inside already felt heavier, charged. A pair of U.S. Marshals entered first, scanning the room like hawks.
Then she appeared.
Pam Bondi walked in slowly, her blonde hair pulled into a no-nonsense bun, her heels echoing with each step down the marble floor. She wore a navy blue pantsuit, no flash, no logo, no ego.
Just presence. Her eyes remained forward. She didn't glance at the press bench. She didn't acknowledge the gallery. She didn't even look at the judge.
Not at first. Cameras weren't allowed inside. This was a sealed hearing. But dozens of eyes and ears were locked on her, capturing every gesture like it would be retold in court dramas for years to come. A few journalists, granted limited access, scribbled furiously into notepads. No one expected her to say anything explosive. Not yet. Maybe she'd offer vague testimony, something procedural, maybe even plead the fifth. Instead, she dropped a bomb within the first 60 seconds. "This goes far beyond entertainment," Bondi said, her voice clear and unshaken. "This is about control, silence, and institutional complicity."
The room froze.
The stenographer paused for half a second, stunned by the sudden gravity of the statement. The judge's eyes narrowed, flicking to the lead prosecutor, who offered only a curt nod, permission to proceed. Bondi continued, this time opening a manila folder laid neatly on the desk before her. She pulled out a list, typed, dated, notarized. "Exhibit A," she said. "These are shell corporations tied to Sean Combs and managed by third-party proxies across 3 jurisdictions, Delaware, the Cayman Islands, and Cyprus. None of them have tax filings post-2014, and yet over $28 million has flowed through them since 2016. The gallery leaned in. The prosecutor requested the list be submitted into sealed evidence. The judge complied. She wasn't done. "Exhibit B," she said, holding up a second sheet. Known drop-off sites for courier exchanges between unnamed individuals. Most of them matched the travel schedules of Mr. Combs and several of his frequent collaborators. It was too much too fast. The defense team scrambled. Diddy's lead attorney, a seasoned federal litigator from D.C., objected on grounds of prejudicial inference and lack of foundation. The judge overruled the objection, stating Bondi had presented her foundation with supporting evidence. That's when the real tension started. Bondi shifted her body ever so slightly toward the gallery, not out of showmanship, but almost as if aiming her next statement directly at the court of public opinion. "I was first approached in 2015 about a settlement involving coercion and audio surveillance. I declined involvement after reviewing transcripts that no one, including the federal investigators at the time, wanted to acknowledge." Her voice didn't break. Her posture didn't waver. In that material, specific locations were identified. A Miami estate, a penthouse in Atlanta, a media studio in Los Angeles, and a warehouse in Queens. Each site was either under surveillance or used for private transactions. These weren't industry meetings. They were leverage exchanges, files, tapes, money. The courtroom fell completely silent. A full minute passed before the judge leaned forward, clearing his throat. "Counsel, do you wish to recess?" "No, Your Honor," Bondi responded, unshaken. "I have additional information." Before the judge could reply, a bailiff quietly approached and handed him a folded slip of paper. The judge read it, blinked, then glanced up at Bondi. "I've been informed that a third party attempted to breach the courthouse perimeter moments ago," he said grimly. "Security has been tightened." It was a reminder, as if anyone needed one, that what was unfolding here wasn't routine. As Bondi resumed, her testimony began weaving names, some whispered in past lawsuits, some never mentioned publicly, into a coherent web. Among them were individuals listed as consultants or investors in companies tied to Diddy's larger business empire. Bondi alleged these roles were mostly covers for data manipulation, asset shielding, or laundering pipelines. An audible gasp rippled through the audience when she mentioned an unregistered nonprofit allegedly used to route donations through digital wallets, only for those funds to vanish through crypto tumblers. But the most stunning moment came when she listed a few known addresses, some matching properties already tied to Diddy, but one that hadn't previously been mentioned, an unlisted condo in Jersey City. That condo was already trending on social media before the session ended. How? Because within minutes, anonymous Telegram and X, Twitter, users began live posting what appeared to be transcripts of Bondi's testimony. No one knew where they were getting them from. But the posts matched exactly with what was being said in court. Hashtags like #Bondi testimony and #Diddy network skyrocketed. The judge ordered a short recess. As people exited the courtroom for air, a strange unease filled the hallway. Everyone had witnessed something irreversible. A shift. A crack. Even seasoned reporters, hardened by years of scandal coverage, admitted they'd never seen testimony this sharp, this unflinching. Some whispered it felt choreographed, like Bondi had waited years to deliver it. Others believed it was spontaneous, raw. But regardless of motive, everyone agreed on one thing. The case had turned. Bondi stood alone near the water dispenser, not talking to anyone, not checking her phone. One marshal asked if she was all right. She nodded. But deep in her eyes, there was something colder, more precise. She hadn't come just to testify. She had come to dismantle. And she had 7 chapters left to go. By the time the court reconvened, everyone in the room felt it. This wasn't just a hearing anymore. It was something more, something unraveling. Pam Bondi returned to the witness stand with the same composed intensity, but her tone had shifted. Sharper. Colder. As if the courtroom was now an operating table, and she was ready to dissect something nobody had dared lay bare before. She opened a thin, black file folder. Your Honor, she began, I now direct the court's attention to an internal project referred to by several parties as Nightshade. Murmurs began immediately. Project Nightshade, she continued, was not an official corporate operation, nor was it registered under any business entity. It functioned as a closed-channel communications ring. Its purpose was to facilitate off-grid coordination between individuals and shell companies, with a focus on surveillance, coercion, and financial movement, completely outside of regulatory oversight. The judge paused to stare at her. Are you saying this was a Black Ops-style system within an entertainment network? Bondi didn't blink. I'm saying it was a syndicate. She then reached into her folder and handed over a printed image, a map. This is a visual reconstruction of the Nightshade network's infrastructure. The nodes indicate high-frequency transmission pings recorded from private jet Reuters, burner phone towers, and encrypted servers. The majority are in 3 U.S. cities, Miami, Atlanta, and Los Angeles, but connections exist in London, Dubai, Zurich, and the Canary Islands. One of the jurors whispered something under their breath. The stenographer looked up, startled, but resumed typing. Bondi pointed at a cluster near Miami. This nexus here aligns with a series of unregistered courier drop-offs tracked between 2017 and 2021. Most of these involved flights operated by Tailwind Holdings, a logistics front registered in the Cayman Islands but operating domestically without FAA oversight. The prosecution confirmed the research. A sealed exhibit was entered into the record, an internal memo showing an untraceable payment structure between Tailwind and a management firm once listed under Sean Combs' umbrella of companies. Diddy's defense team objected again, this time forcefully, claiming speculative inference and irreparable damage to their client's reputation. The judge didn't even look at them. The witness may proceed. Bondi lifted another page, handwritten notes, dark ink, slightly smudged. This ledger, she explained, was recovered from a storage unit leased under a false name in Broward County. Inside was a locked duffel bag containing surveillance-grade equipment, pin mics, microcameras, voice distortion tools. But more importantly, this ledger listed account movements that match flagged transfers in the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network database. She flipped the page toward the courtroom projector. There are over 30 names here, many of them high-profile individuals in music, television, and politics. But the title at the top of the ledger reads, "For Nightshade Eyes Only." Gasps erupted again. The judge threatened to clear the gallery if order wasn't maintained. Bondi didn't react. She turned to a printed server log, rows and rows of aliases communicating via encrypted messaging apps not available to the public. Apps with code-level security often used by foreign intelligence. These accounts, she said, are linked to burner devices purchased in bulk from overseas vendors and regularly reset with randomized encryption keys. The chats reference payouts, location swaps, and more than one instance of the phrase insurance package sent. Define insurance package, the judge requested. In these contexts, it refers to compromising material, often digital or audio, used to ensure loyalty or silence.
Bondi didn't flinch as she spoke it.
She had clearly rehearsed these moments for years, not for performance, but for clarity.
Each word landed like a blow. The courtroom sat in stunned silence.
Then came the next name, Project Spearhead. One of the subnets within Nightshade, Your Honor, is known as Spearhead. This component coordinated with offshore banking systems and crypto obfuscation platforms. Not only does this structure suggest money laundering, it suggests it was engineered by individuals with knowledge of forensic accounting techniques designed to evade federal tracing. She handed over a second packet, heavier than the first. Inside were printouts of blockchain wallet transactions, cross-referenced with timestamps from air traffic control logs.
A jet landing in Zurich.
A wallet transfer minutes later. The same pattern repeated with flights to Seychelles, Dubai, and Panama City. The same wallets appear in a music distribution company owned by a known Combs affiliate, Bondi concluded. Which would make that company, knowingly or not, a pass-through for illicit funds.
The defense team once again objected.
The judge sustained this time, but it didn't matter. The damage had been done. Even if inadmissible for the moment, the implication was now lodged deep in everyone's mind. Bondi wasn't just making accusations.
She was revealing a blueprint.
The final moment of the day came when Bondi dropped one more name, publicly for the first time, a well-known producer who had worked closely with Diddy throughout the 2000s. This individual, she said, appears to have served as the primary coordinator for Nightshade communications between 2013 and 2019. His email aliases were registered using a Swiss-based anonymizing service that has since been shut down under European data law violations.
And what became of him? The judge asked.
He disappeared in 2020, she replied.
No forwarding address. No financial activity since.
There is a possibility he is deceased, or hidden. A chilling hush fell over the room once more. The judge called an adjournment until the following morning. But even as the gavel struck, no one stood up.
The courtroom wasn't just quiet, it was paralyzed.
Everyone knew they were watching something that didn't happen in public.
That shouldn't happen in public.
A story told in redacted files and whispered calls was now unfolding in plain sight. Pam Bondi closed her file, stood up, and exited without a word. But as she walked past the press benches, one reporter noticed something on the outside of her folder. An embossed label with 3 words printed in silver ink.
Truth is loud.
The courtroom was tense the next morning, heavier, somehow. Everyone filed in slowly, hushed and alert, like witnesses preparing for a funeral rather than a hearing. Even the judge looked older overnight. The gravity of what was being uncovered had begun to settle in, and the weight was almost unbearable. Pam Bondi returned to the stand with the same unflinching composure, her black folder tucked under her arm like a scalpel. She didn't need notes today, she had memorized it all. This section of my testimony, she began, concerns electronic surveillance systems recovered during a federal raid in 2019, linked directly to Mr. Combs' Miami estate.
The judge raised an eyebrow.
Are you referring to the property previously investigated by the FBI under sealed warrants?
Yes, Your Honor, Bondi replied.
But I will now introduce evidence that was not previously made public, including visual footage recovered from a cloned hard drive.
A soft gasp rippled through the courtroom.
She handed the bailiff a silver USB drive, which was inserted into the courtroom's protected viewing system. A monitor flickered to life. I'm not permitted to show the raw video publicly, Bondi explained. But I have prepared stills, timecodes, and a log of key moments, all extracted and verified by an independent forensic lab.
The screen displayed a series of grainy stills.
The footage appeared to have been captured from hidden wall cameras, low angles, static, but clear enough to identify faces and furniture. The first still, Diddy, seated in a leather chair in what appeared to be a private lounge, one that had never been photographed publicly. The second still, a celebrity attorney, now a household name, pacing nervously with a manila folder in hand. The third, 3 individuals seated side by side, one a media executive, one a model, one a known political fundraiser, all mid-conversation. The audio log suggested they were discussing wire transfers and confidentiality agreements. Bondi provided a document with timestamps matched to calendar data and guest lists from the same weekend. This footage was captured on August 8, 2017, she said. According to FAA data, Mr. Combs' private aircraft landed in Miami 3 hours prior. Several of the individuals seen in this footage arrived via rideshare, which was strategically routed to an adjacent property and walked in through a covered breezeway to avoid detection.
She turned a page.
These meetings, these so-called network syncs, were never acknowledged in financial records, promotional materials, or legal filings. And yet, the conversations recorded here make clear references to payouts, compromise files, and pressure mechanisms used to manipulate internal decisions across media platforms.
The defense team stood.
Your Honor, the footage has no confirmed chain of custody. We move to strike all references.
Bondi was ready.
She reached into her folder and held up a signed affidavit. This is from a former member of Mr. Combs' private security detail.
His identity is protected.
But under sworn deposition, he confirmed the existence of the recording systems, including their activation schedules, hard drive storage lockers, and data redundancy protocols.
She turned to the judge.
He also confirmed every room was wired.
Stunned silence.
The judge looked visibly shaken. The bathrooms.
Except the bathrooms, Bondi clarified.
But he did state that microphones were embedded in shower fixtures. Passive audio only. Even for those used to hearing scandalous revelations, this crossed a line. It was no longer about parties, or NDAs, or hush money. This was surveillance and control.
The room felt cold.
Bondi pressed on, projecting another still onto the screen. This image shows a small control room inside the Miami property's basement. According to blueprints, that space does not exist.
It was constructed beneath a wine cellar.
Inside, 3 monitors cycled live footage from bedrooms, offices, and lounges. The witness described it as a vault of leverage.
One juror covered their mouth.
Another shifted uncomfortably in their seat.
Was this surveillance legal? The judge asked.
Bondi answered carefully.
The answer depends on consent.
According to Florida law, recording someone without consent is illegal, unless that person has signed a waiver. Several guests were reportedly given electronic NDAs embedded into iPad check-ins at the front gate.
They signed without reading.
The implications were chilling. How many celebrities, executives, and influencers had been recorded under the illusion of safety? How many secrets were now in the hands of someone who could use them?
Bondi wasn't finished.
During the 2019 raid, a hard drive was recovered from the Miami mansion.
It was encrypted and initially thought to be corrupted.
But in 2021, a private forensic firm, Global Trace Analytics, was able to restore 62% of the data. Among the recovered files were video folders labeled insurance, Raintree, and complicated.
She let that sink in.
These videos appear to show emotionally vulnerable interactions, captured without the subject's knowledge. In one, a recording artist is seen crying after being threatened with the release of explicit photos. In another, a tech investor confesses to falsifying shareholder documents. These videos were catalogued, timestamped, and stored in folders marked with the year and the person's initials.
The judge turned pale.
Why would someone store such content? He asked.
Bondi looked directly at him.
Because power doesn't lie in fame. It lies in what people are afraid will be exposed.
No one dared move.
After a long pause, the judge called for a 15-minute recess, not out of procedural necessity, but as a mercy to the people in the room. As the court emptied, reporters in the hallway scrambled to update their dispatches.
Social media was already ablaze.
The phrase "every room was wired" trended for hours, even as attempts were made to suppress the hashtags. Back inside, Bondi sat silently, her folder resting in her lap. Across the aisle, Diddy's legal team whispered furiously among themselves.
No statement had been issued. No rebuttal was forthcoming. Because how do you rebut a vault of leverage?
What happened in that Miami mansion, it now seemed, was not just a party scene, it was a theater of manipulation. And Bondi had only just begun pulling back the curtain. The courtroom was quieter than usual the following morning. The Miami footage had shaken the public, but the inner circles, agents, executives, handlers, were terrified. Whispers of who might be in the unreleased recordings had sent shockwaves through the entertainment industry.
Some were already lawyering up. Others were vanishing offline.
Pam Bondi entered with the same unshakable calm, but today, she carried a slimmer folder, black leather, gold clasp. When she opened it on the stand, the tension in the room shifted.
Something international was coming.
Your Honor, she began. Today I'll be detailing a European extension of the surveillance and laundering network, coded internally as Orchid House. The name hung in the air like perfume, floral, delicate, dangerous.
This was not a location, she clarified.
It was an operation, based out of London and designed to replicate the Miami system abroad. It used cultural events, industry retreats, and influencer programs as cover for blackmail, data extraction, and financial rerouting. She tapped a document titled Orchid House Logistics, 2016 to 2022. Bondi explained that in 2016, a former music producer turned media consultant allegedly purchased a 7-story Georgian townhouse in South Kensington through an offshore holding company. That townhouse, while registered as a corporate retreat, was used for private meetings with international executives, artists, and politicians. Guests were flown in under false pretenses, exclusive industry workshops, influencer summits, and brand acceleration weekends.
Many had their passports collected upon arrival.
Rooms were monitored. Data was scraped from their devices using proximity-based malware tools. A collective inhale echoed through the courtroom. This was not a party house, Bondi continued. It was a trap. She produced travel records showing frequent private jet activity from Teterboro and Van Nuys airports to Farnborough and London City. Most flights were booked under pseudonyms, but customs data confirmed the real passengers.
Names the public knew.
Names already whispered. Over £4 million flowed through UK-based charities and consulting firms tied to Orchid House, Bondi said. These funds were then routed into crypto wallets registered in Estonia and later converted into USD through anonymized mixers. She showed the paper trail, cryptic but traceable. The most disturbing detail emerged next. The Orchid House staff roster included a man identified only by initials and internal emails. R.A. Bondi revealed his name in court, a former MI5 agent who had allegedly been dismissed quietly in 2011 after an internal investigation into unauthorized surveillance. He was then hired as a private contractor by an American client, she stated flatly. The contract terms were encrypted, but the IP address used to transmit those files traced back to a property owned by Mr. Combs Entertainment Group.
The courtroom exploded in murmurs.
Bondi didn't flinch. The MI5 affiliate provided services ranging from audio counter-surveillance to digital extraction and asset recovery. He had full access to the Orchid House surveillance system, which mirrored the Miami layout, 360-degree wall cameras, retina-level MIC sensitivity, and remote-controlled data wiping capabilities. The judge asked, was this data ever intercepted by UK authorities?
Bondi paused.
There was a raid on Orchid House in early 2023.
It was not made public.
Several hard drives were confiscated, but 3 were missing from the core vault. British authorities are still investigating.
She slid a folder toward the bailiff.
Included here are excerpts from interviews with 4 individuals who stayed at Orchid House between 2018 and 2021. All described similar conditions: locked rooms, mandatory electronic NDAs, and restricted phone use. 2 alleged they were threatened with the release of sensitive personal data if they disclosed the true nature of their visit. The defense team objected: hearsay, relevance, jurisdiction. But the judge allowed the documents under sealed review, pending further admissibility hearings. Then came the financial revelation. Bondi unveiled a document connecting an encrypted bank transfer from a now-defunct charity in Brixton to a holding firm registered in Delaware, one later linked to a touring entity under Diddy's corporate structure. The transfer was labeled emergency cultural funding, she said. But the timestamp matches exactly with a flight that carried a whistleblower out of London and into the United States under federal protection.
Silence. Everyone understood what she was implying. The UK wanted someone silenced. The US got them out. And Diddy's network had tried to cut off the escape.
That evening, across the Atlantic, the Times broke the story. Former UK intelligence contractor tied to US entertainment scandal. Parliament requested a transcript of Bondi's full testimony. The US State Department received a formal inquiry. Back in court, Bondi dropped one final detail before adjournment. In her possession, she claimed, was a redacted report from a British cybersecurity firm hired to audit Orchid House's internal systems after the 2023 raid. The report found a Trojan program named bloomtrigger.exe, coded to automatically upload specific audio files to a cloud server registered in Singapore every 24 hours.
What was the folder called? The judge asked. Bondi answered without looking at her notes. Daisies. The room froze again.
Because daisies were referenced in an earlier Miami footage transcript, coded language used by Diddy's inner circle to refer to blackmail-ready material. With Orchid House exposed, the courtroom had officially gone global. Pam Bondi closed her folder slowly. And for the first time since the trial began, even Diddy's defense attorneys looked like they wanted to be somewhere else.
The courtroom lights felt dimmer that day.
It wasn't the weather. New York was unseasonably bright, but the atmosphere inside the federal courthouse was undeniably heavier. Rumors had begun to bleed out through legal circles, online forums, even a few encrypted podcasts. There was something about a tape. Not just any tape, the tape. Pam Bondi walked in with a smaller file than usual, just a red folder marked with a single word on the tab, gasp.
She opened with no preamble.
In 2004, Bondi said, a VHS tape, internally referred to as the gasp, was created during a controlled recording session at a studio once owned by one of Mr. Combs' business entities. This tape, based on corroborated testimony and metadata extracted from duplicate files, contains footage used to blackmail at least 3 high-profile individuals.
Silence. She continued, calmly.
The original tape was stored in a locked cabinet inside Studio Room 9 at Revolution Sound, a Los Angeles facility. The building was later demolished in 2010 after a change of ownership and a suspicious electrical fire. Bondi then revealed something no one expected: she'd never actually seen the tape.
But she didn't need to.
Because what she had was something better, a digital copy, extracted from a backup drive clone during an unrelated cybersecurity audit in 2015. The file had since gone missing from the FBI's secure archive.
Gone, the judge echoed.
As in erased.
More like unaccounted for, Bondi clarified.
Its existence was scrubbed from internal systems sometime between March and September of 2017. 2 agents involved in the archive project transferred divisions shortly after. Everyone understood what that meant: disappeared by design.
Bondi held up a page.
This is an internal memo from the FBI's Evidence Retrieval Unit. It references the GASP tape under case alias 34BL, stating, contents contain reputational risk to multiple federal cooperators and must remain sealed until formal review by National Security Council.
She paused. But that review never happened.
And the tape vanished. Diddy's defense team moved quickly to object, but the judge waved them down. The word national security had a gravitational pull that no lawyer could spin away from. Suddenly, this wasn't just about music, money, or NDAs, it was about classified material. Bondi then dropped the next surprise: a sketch artist courtroom rendering from a closed-door session in 2016. That hearing, sealed to the public, involved a whistleblower from within a boutique media consultancy hired by Diddy's team. The sketch captured a woman describing, tearfully, a video where a well-known senator was caught engaging in acts that were never meant to be recorded. The original tapes were allegedly kept in a safety deposit box in Zurich.
But the digital clone?
That ended up in a data center in Nevada, rented under Tech LLC linked, once again, back to Orchid House's UK offshore fund.
The judge leaned forward.
Ms. Bondi, you're implying the tape was used to influence government decisions.
I'm not implying anything, Bondi said.
I'm stating that in 2016, just weeks after the digital clone of the GASP was flagged, a federal bill designed to increase media transparency was pulled from the Senate floor with no official explanation.
The bill's sponsor?
The same senator believed to be in the footage.
Now the courtroom didn't breathe. No one dared even sip from their water bottles. Bondi passed another document to the clerk.
This is a digital reconstruction log from 2022. A forensic specialist in France, using recovered metadata, attempted to partially restore the GASP from fragmented cloud uploads. What was recovered was incomplete, just 42 seconds of distorted footage, but it shows one individual seated in front of a mirror, repeating phrases consistent with coercion scripts.
What kind of phrases? The judge asked. Bondi answered without emotion. I said yes. I said yes. It's done. Don't send it. Some jurors looked away.
Then Bondi delivered her quietest statement yet.
There are people in this room who know the rest of that footage still exists. And they know where. The silence after that was volcanic.
But one person didn't remain still. A woman seated in the second row, part of a legal team unaffiliated with either side, stood up mid-session and walked briskly out of the courtroom.
Her phone was already in hand.
No one stopped her. The courtroom sketch artist, seated in the rear, flipped their pad to a new page and began drawing rapidly, Bondi at the stand, the red folder open, the ghost of a tape that no longer officially existed floating above it like a black cloud. Social media detonated within the hour. The gasp was trending on X, along with theories, fragments of the 42-second leaked clip, allegedly leaked within 30 minutes of Bondi's testimony, and AI-enhanced recreations trying to identify the figures inside. The Justice Department released no statement. The FBI declined comment. And Diddy's camp, once media-savvy to a fault, remained silent. But one question reverberated louder than any court gavel. If the gasp was powerful enough to be buried by the FBI, what else is buried with it? Bondi closed her red folder and calmly nodded at the judge. That concludes my testimony for today. The judge, visibly rattled, called an early recess. And for once, even the stenographer seemed grateful. No one had heard the full tape. But everyone had heard enough. By the next morning, federal marshals had increased their presence inside and outside the courthouse. 2 black SUVs idled near the east entrance, engine heat rising from beneath the bulletproof hoods. Reporters were kept at a double perimeter, armed guards scanning badges like it was a terrorism trial. Inside, the air was colder, strategic, deliberate, and undeniably tense. Pam Bondi arrived wearing sunglasses. Not to make a statement, but because, by then, she didn't need to. The previous day's revelations about the gasp had already set off a chain reaction. Now the consequences had begun. Before she even took the stand, the prosecution entered into the record a sealed alert. 3 individuals affiliated with Diddy's legal or financial network had fled the United States within 48 hours of Bondi's testimony. 1 boarded a private jet to Dubai. Another was confirmed crossing into Mexico through a private terminal in Tijuana. The third had simply gone dark, last known location, a private resort in St. Kitts. Their names were not released publicly. But inside the courtroom, their initials were enough to startle every defense attorney at the table. Bondi took her seat. Her voice was steady, but the tempo had changed, calmer, yes, but colder. The kind of calm that follows a detonation. The flight risk was anticipated, she began. Several of the individuals named in the Orchid House and Miami surveillance logs had international citizenships, dual passports, and access to offshore banking designed for rapid relocation. I informed federal authorities of these possibilities prior to my initial testimony. The judge nodded grimly. Are you aware that sealed protective orders were breached during this trial? He asked. Bondi didn't blink. Yes. I believe internal leaks within federal agencies have endangered the scope and integrity of this investigation. Gasps rippled through the press bench. She elaborated. Over the last 6 days, at least 4 documents from sealed court exhibits had appeared, unaltered, on encrypted messaging platforms. Someone was leaking evidence. Not distorted. Not redacted. Exact files. The Department of Justice was already looking into it, but Bondi made something chillingly clear. Based on metadata, the files were opened inside a secure DOJ network an hour before they leaked. Whoever is doing this is not outside the system. They are the system. That's when a juror leaned forward, visibly shaken, and whispered something to the bailiff. The bailiff passed a note to the judge. He read it silently, then addressed the court. We will be reviewing juror safety protocols effective immediately. No recess at this time. Ms. Bondi, continue. She turned a page. Diddy's last known digital footprint occurred at 3:41 a.m. Eastern Time. He posted a black screen on Instagram stories with one word: everybody. 10 minutes later, the account was deleted. Phone off. Email bounced. Jet inactive. A disappearance, silent and intentional. Then Bondi laid out a new revelation. A sealed motion had been filed by federal prosecutors to investigate a series of internal leaks suspected to originate from individuals with both clearance and incentive to suppress testimony. The motion, quietly named Order Sigma, requested covert surveillance authorization against 6 federal employees. This was no longer just about Diddy. This was about the machine around him. Bondi's next document was simple, a printed screenshot from an anonymous whistleblower's post. The message read, "If Bondi makes it to Chapter 7, somebody in Langley is going to throw a chair." She looked up. This post was deleted 3 minutes after it went live. We were able to trace its origin to a Wi-Fi network inside a subcontracted intelligence briefing office in Arlington, Virginia. Silence. The judge cleared his throat but said nothing. Then, Bondi addressed the elephant in the room. I've been accused of vendettas, of political performance. But none of this, would have surfaced had those hard drives not been cloned, had those audio logs not been ignored, had those women and men not whispered what they were too afraid to shout.
She lifted a flash drive.
This is a digital replica of every document submitted in this case. In the event of obstruction, suppression, or sudden legal interference, it is set to auto-distribute to 12 journalists, 3 international legal agencies, and 2 AI scrubbing services that will permanently embed this data into public archives. She looked to the judge. I don't intend to disappear.
There was no dramatic music. No shout. Just a courtroom full of people who suddenly realized what she was really doing. She wasn't just testifying. She was preparing for war.
After that, the prosecution entered into record one final item for the day, a sworn statement from an unnamed juror.
It read,
"This case feels bigger than any crime I've ever heard of.
Bigger than Epstein. Bigger than Watergate. I don't think we're watching a trial.
I think we're watching a chess match where some of the pieces are trying to flip the board before checkmate."
The judge recessed the court early. Outside, the press was chaos. But no statement was made.
No press conference. No comment from Diddy's team, who remained absent from court for the third day in a row. By nightfall, the news spread that Interpol had been contacted regarding one of the 3 men who fled the country. His name wasn't released.
But Pam Bondi knew who it was. And she knew who was next. The courtroom had reached a new, eerie stillness.
After 7 explosive days of testimony, leaks, flight, and federal panic, the final day felt like the eye of a storm, quiet, deceptive, and almost surreal. Everyone knew what was coming.
No one knew how it would end.
Pam Bondi walked in without a folder this time. No papers. No exhibits.
Just a small, locked silver case in her hand.
2 marshals flanked her, one of them now permanently assigned as security detail following several late-night threats tied to anonymous accounts. Still, Bondi looked untouched.
She's Saturday. She adjusted the mic. And then she said it.
The game was never about music, it was control.
No one made a sound. Not even the judge. Her words just hung. Bondi leaned forward slightly.
For the past decade, an invisible architecture has existed behind the image of Sean Combs.
It looked like a brand. It moved like a business. But it was neither. It was an infrastructure of silence.
And everyone who got too close either disappeared, went quiet, or got rich. She nodded at the bailiff, who unlocked the silver case and handed its contents to the judge, a black, nondescript USB drive inside a sealed evidence envelope. "This drive contains audio recordings," Bondi said, "retrieved from a personal archive I've maintained since 2015. They were recorded legally, under consent, during my time as Attorney General and during private consultations in the years that followed."
The judge eyed the envelope.
"What's on it?"
Bondi answered plainly.
"A confession. And a list."
Gasps, whispers, even a faint thud as someone in the back dropped their pen.
"A direct confession from a former associate of Mr. Combs," she continued. "In 2018, under the belief that he was dying from pancreatic cancer, he contacted me anonymously through a mutual legal intermediary. He believed his time was limited, and that the burden of what he knew would follow him into the grave."
The audio, Bondi claimed, was clean. No distortion. Full names.
Specifics.
Descriptions of financial pipelines. Locations of leverage vaults.
Destruction of digital evidence. Even instructions allegedly given to make someone vanish via coerced relocation to South America. The list? A directory of 23 names, sorted into categories. Leverage holders.
Executing hands. Ghost participants.
Media puppets.
Bondi let the categories speak for themselves.
She didn't name the people on the list aloud, but she didn't have to. The courtroom's tension told the story. Journalists scribbled. One defense attorney went visibly pale. 2 jurors leaned away from the bench, exchanging glances that said they knew. But the moment that froze the courtroom, truly, irreversibly froze it, was the next one. "An official from Homeland Security is here today," Bondi announced. "He arrived this morning and is sitting in the gallery."
Heads turned. Slowly, cautiously. A clean-cut man in a gray suit stood. No ID, no words, just a simple nod to the judge. Bondi continued. "This is not just a court case anymore.
As of this morning, the Department of Homeland Security has entered an active investigation into potential federal conspiracy, international money laundering, and illicit data retention concerning multiple subjects within and surrounding Mr. Combs' corporate holdings."
The judge's jaw clenched. He didn't interrupt. He simply turned to his clerk and whispered something. A phone was picked up. A call was made. A door closed behind them. Bondi pressed on.
The audio recordings have been authenticated by forensic experts, she said. Their timecodes, device IDs, and environmental markers match known meetings and dates confirmed by third-party evidence.
These aren't stories. These are coordinates.
She concluded her testimony by stating one final fact. 2 of the names on the list are current federal employees.
Boom. That was it. No more questions. No cross-examination.
The judge didn't ask for clarification. He simply called a recess, a long one, without explanation. Court was dismissed for the day, pending review of the USB's contents and further federal coordination. Outside, news vans swarmed like vultures. Helicopters circled overhead.
Diddy's legal team refused to speak.
Homeland Security issued a simple 5-word statement through a spokesperson. We are aware and reviewing. Within hours, encrypted versions of the list, unverified but chillingly plausible, began circulating online.
Some names were blurred. Some were blacked out.
But a few were legible.
And they weren't entertainers. They were gatekeepers.
Back inside the courthouse, one thing became clear. This trial would not conclude the way anyone imagined.
There might be no verdict. No sentencing. Only fallout. And Bondi?
She simply walked away, surrounded by marshals, stepping into the backseat of a nondescript sedan as if she hadn't just dismantled a decade of silence in front of the world. The last thing she reportedly said before the door closed? If they think this is over, they don't understand how deep this goes.
Case pending. Truth unleashed. Game changed. The court of law would now collide with the court of public opinion.
And nobody was ready for what came next.